So I was someone who jumped around in majors. My first semester of college was actually at Tulane University, and I was an international relations major when 9/11 happened, living in an international dorm. So talk about a transformative and impactful experience. But the smartest decision I ever made was to come back to Wichita State. And interestingly enough, I had competed for an almost full ride and I never formally declined the scholarship. So it was actually waiting for me when I came back at semester. Talk about some sort of guardian angel that I've got going on there. So I then was political science for a little bit, went to secondary education, thinking I would enjoy teaching, and quickly came back to political science. And it's just where my passion was. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, but my experience, and this is one of the questions I'll kind of jump ahead, with the political science department was amazing. I had phenomenal professors, and I was able to utilize two of the internship programs to intern in Washington, D.C. and Topeka. And I can talk more about those in a moment. But those experiences, I think, were instrumental in really fostering that love of community service and American government. And so, after having experience at the federal level and the state level, I ended up at the local level. So it's a really unique experience to have worked in all three levels of U.S. government. So I think my passion just came from, again, fantastic professors, great material, and Bush v. Gore was around my time, and that was a very interesting time in American politics. But isn't it always an interesting time in American politics? So yeah, that was how I found it. I do not come from a political family at all, even though I did find out later that my mother's cousin, so I guess my second cousin is mayor of a little tiny town where our family comes from, Paradise, Kansas. So we're basically the Kennedys. But yeah, so that's where I ended up, and I think the background in my education, but also my internships, very much prepared me for entering government, even though it was a different level.
I Similar experience. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I actually came to WSU thinking I was going to be a teaching major, and still something I'm interested in. It might be the last part of my career. I end up being a high school teacher, but I came here thinking I was going to do that, and started taking some of the prerequisites, and really loved history. I got into a couple history classes, and it's just fascinating. It still is. I love to read about history and talk about it and whatnot. But after I'm going through some of the history program, and I ended up majoring in history, so I changed my major from teaching to history. You can see just how influential public figures were and public policy was, not just in our nation's history, but obviously throughout world history. And it kind of stirred an interest in political science, took a couple of political science courses, and honed in on that as being an area of interest for me as well. So I ended up in political science because of that. And from there, it was learning about and considering different levels of government, the international relations, federal, state, local, and also having to think through. So if I want to, and it kind of stirred a passion for public service, which is really what all of us should be doing if you go into a career in local government. Kind of where should that be focused? Should it be at the state, national level, the local level? Should it be on the elected side? Should it be on the unelected side as a member of staff of government? So it ended up helping me go into a master's program, thinking I wanted to be on the local level and at the staff level in terms of city management. So that's kind of how I ended up at Wichita State in political science, and where I went soon thereafter.
Yeah, and I took a long way into the political science program. I started pretty late. I was 23, I think, when I entered the program. I originally went to school in Laramie, Wyoming for mechanics right out of high school. Dropped out of that, came back and worked for a while before I kind of realized that I didn't like what I was doing. I needed to get out of AutoZone, get out of working on cars, and find a major. And I would say my upbringing made me want to go into political science. I had a pretty rough childhood, rough upbringing, and I always kind of questioned the underlying issues that kind of kept my family where they were at, or stagnant, food insecurity and things like that. And so I questioned a lot of those policy decisions, and I started political science with more of an interest in American politics, quickly got into international relations, and because the professor Asprue really got into data analysis, which is what most of my job has consisted of for the last 6, 7 years.
when I was at school here was we had so many open discussions about what to do in the aftermath of September 11th, about where the country was going during the 2000 election that was contested with the war in Iraq and whatnot, and with students who were like-minded and students who had completely different opinions on the political spectrum, and professors who had completely different perspectives in the political spectrum. In the newsletter that came out here, I shared this with a couple of folks on the way in. Two of my favorite professors who are here, Mel Kahn and Ken Saboski, who couldn't be farther apart on the political spectrum. I was fascinated talking with other students and them about all these major things going on in our country and realizing just how important it is to have a diversity of voices and opinions. There are so many smart people all throughout the political spectrum, all of whom deserve the same a level of respect and the same voice. And I think going into a career in probably any level of government, but in terms of local government, so much of local government is face-to-face. You meet with community members, you meet with elected officials, you meet with unelected but city staff members, for example, and everybody has diverse interests and diverse viewpoints, and having the patience and to understand, to want to understand somebody and come up with solutions that really represent the best of everybody's work together, I think really was a seed probably that came from political science for me.
There's two classes that come to mind, kind of two different aspects of my job. The first one's Model UN. One, because it was the first time I realized I wasn't stupid, so that was good. Two, it gave me confidence to be a public speaker, and a lot of my job now is traveling across the country and giving presentations at national conferences and meeting with leaders in other cities and states. Like this week, I met with the city of Chicago to do some work with their overdose data to action stuff. And then the other classes, I think at the time it was called research methods. I think now it's the political data analysis class that I've been filling in for Brian on. But that class, as much as it terrified me in the beginning, gave me my introduction into
local government, right? And we've all been in it then up here, so I kind of wonder if we're taking anything for granted, because lots of people would find out, oh, I work for the city, whether it was in a finance role or public works, and they just think I'm the mayor. It's like, no, I'm not the mayor. I'm on the, and then they'd have a blank stare if it was city management, finance, whatever else. There's the elected side and then the unelected side. Usually, like in a city government or a state or a school board or whatever, you've got 5, 7, 9 people or whatever who are elected. They are the ones who make the decisions about the direction and the strategic items that guide the organization. At the staff level, we're the ones who implement those things. So thank you for the compliments. We do a really good job at the staff level to make things happen. And I think at the local government level, we probably are the ones that get stuff done, right? But are we getting the right things done? And that's where the elected officials are the ones who have so many of those conversations with their constituents. They set up advisory boards, they have committees, they get public input, and they're the ones who have to decide where should our organization be going, what direction should we be pushing our community to, and how should we get there? And then we, as on the staff level, we're the ones who get paid as just like a CEO or whatever at a company, to make that happen, and we give the right information to help the elected officials make those decisions. So it's a balance. Yes, the unelected side, we get a lot of stuff done. The elected side, they have to set the course, and there's so much constituent work, I'm sure, that goes into that. So when you're thinking about a career in local government, you have to kind of figure out, would it be something that I want to run for office? You know, we get to interview for jobs and do skills tests or whatever else, and then we get a job offer. Whole different experience getting to be mayor, right?
I get to interview with thousands of people on their doorsteps.
Yeah, I don't have to go door to door, but that, you know. So I mean, you have to kind of be thinking about what would it look like to you, and some of it's just what your talents are, I think, and what your interests are. If you have no interest in going door to door and being the face of a community, but you have a passion for helping the community around you, the unelected staff level, there's so many different opportunities. If you have more of a strategic mindset in terms of what an elected official would do, then that's a path for you as well, I think.
What is, pop quiz, the highest executive position in the United States of America? President. Okay. What is the highest executive office in a state? And the highest elective office in a city? The mayor. So people will often think that I have had ultimate power. I had veto power. I could tell the chief of police what to do. There are two forms of local government, and Oklahoma has a mix of them, and people got confused about it. So there's I hate the phrase strong mayor because it implies the rest of us were weak, which is not true. But that means they do have traditional executive power. Tulsa has that. And that is a G.T. Bynum, and it is his full-time job. He has an actual living wage salary. Where mine in also Oklahoma City, which people were surprised by, and Norman have a council manager form of government. And so I describe that as like a board of directors. We all know you can't run government like a business. We've tried that, didn't work out so well. So if it was a business, though, in a council manager form of government, the board of directors would be the city council. The mayor would be the chairwoman of the board in my case, and we would have one employee.
City of Wichita has one employee.
Which is
for
the
the
city
council,
manager.
right? The city manager.
The city
yeah.
manager. And so I can't go tell this guy, if I was Mayor Whipple, to go execute this. That would be wildly inappropriate. You have to go through the city manager. And if he doesn't execute our vision through the staff like we want, then we handle it through the city manager. A lot of people were confused by that. The city of Norman is the third largest city in the state of Oklahoma. We have about 130,000 people. We're about this much bigger than Tulsa in terms of size. A lot of people don't realize that. We're the only city to have a state park within our city limits, and that's how we're so big. Anywho, guess how much I made to be mayor of the third largest city in the state of Oklahoma? 20K, 40,000. I made $100 a month. It was a volunteer position. And here's the kicker. So during COVID, when everyone pivoted and we took our meetings online, they weren't classified as meetings per se. So I worked literally around the clock while doing my actual full-time job and teaching my kids in school for free because they didn't qualify as that meeting. We get paid like $20 a meeting and caps at 100. Yeah. Talk about a labor of love. So before you decide to run for office, figure out what kind of level of government it is and if it's worth your time and effort. But I promise you, consider it because of how that was set up. We were seeing retired people and rich people, which is great. We need all kinds, but that's not what Norman is completely made out of. So we need all kinds. And it's also incumbent upon constituents to change whatever charters or constitutions are needed to make it a livable wage. So you do get diversity and people are able to participate. But look into that. And I love what you said about, knocking on doors. If you're thinking I might want to run for office someday, then you better volunteer on a campaign. You need to pick up a phone and call a complete stranger and ask them for money. And then you need to knock on the door of a complete stranger and ask them for their vote. And if you can't do those things, then perhaps being a candidate is not for you. But honestly, after my experiences, I thought I was going to be a staffer. And I'm happy to tell you how that pivoted into being a candidate should the question get there. But we need good staffers, we need good campaign people, and we need good civil servants and city employees. So there are lots of ways, as you touched on, to make a difference in your community, which you'll feel a whole lot faster and see the fruits of at the local level. So preemption is like the dirtiest word ever in local government, especially coming from a state where they scream local control at the federal government, but do not hesitate to trample on the rights of local elected officials to push what they want, even though I run into my constituents at the grocery store, right? Like I couldn't even watch one of my kids' t-ball game without someone coming up. I learned to bring cards to family events and be like, I'm so sorry, I'm spending time with my family. Here's my card, let's schedule an appointment. So preemption, I've dealt with that so many times because we're the troublemakers in Norman, Oklahoma. Funky college town, little blue bubble. That's right. They love me at the state capitol. So the first time we got preempted was as an elder millennial. I'm very, very passionate about climate change, as frankly you all should be. That should not be a political issue. None of this political fighting matters if there's no planet to inhabit. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And so an easy target I thought was plastic bags. I mean, countries and states have banned them or put a fee on them for decades at this point. Oklahoma is about decades behind everyone else.
That wasn't an easy thing, was it?
Okay. Yeah, plastic bag's like a trigger word for me. And so we had it set up where it was a fee, not a tax, because you have to watch what vocabulary you use. And the fee went right back to the business to help them with signage and training, and then partially to the city to support other recycling programs. That's all it was. We were not making money off of it. And word got out that Norman was causing trouble again, and we got preempted by Senator Lee Drumright, who wrote legislation that I believe was from ALEC. If you guys know what ALEC is, if you don't know what ALEC is, you better figure it out, because they're the ones actually controlling things at the state level. I'm so jaded. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to tell you how it is. And we have legislatively protected plastic waste in the state of Oklahoma. They have made it illegal for state or local governments and anything like that, counties as well, to put a fee or a tax on any auxiliary containers, which they went past plastic bags and protected styrofoam containers, straws, all sorts of things. So we're actually going backwards in the state of Oklahoma when it comes to protecting our government. But what is one of the main things produced in the state of Oklahoma? Anyone know? Oil. And what are plastic bags made out of? So there you go.
There you go.
Thank you to our panelists. We'll join me. Thank
Thank you. Thank you both very much.
Yes, I enjoyed this. These are two of my favorite entities, right?
Hey, Public Works gets it done.
All right.